If you're an entrepreneur for a few years, you face a lot of challenges. I've been one for almost 24 years, so every other day is a challenge. So it's hard to capture all the challenges that we faced and how we overcame them in a few minutes. But what I can tell you are two things. I'm not going to get into specific of any challenge, but a, whether you like it or not, if you're an entrepreneur, challenges will come. B, most of those challenges are something that you're not going to predict. You can sit before you start and list down 100 challenges I will face on a PowerPoint slide. What you'll start getting is from 101 onwards, right? They're totally different, completely unexpected. I think the thing to find out the way to deal with them, two things that I've done is A, stay calm, and B, have an intense bias for action, right? The only way you're going to get over a problem is to act upon it. When you act upon the problem, you may realize that you have not solved it, but at least it tells you that this doesn't work and you do something else. But what you can't do is wait, right? Startups can't afford to wait. As long as you have a bias for action and you stay calm, I think most problems are surmountable.
Absolutely. I think that you've answered two of my questions because I was going to ask if there are any mental models that for founders can follow, because I'm sure that's it's an unpredictable journey. So what to do? I think he's answered it. Stay calm and have a strong bias for action, and that'll probably help you solve most of your problems. So coming to you, Manish, do you remember any pivotal decisions that you might have taken, or some challenge that might have come your way which has really changed the strategy or course of your business? So I mean, if you can share some of those, that'll be amazing.
Yeah, I think, I don't know if I'm loud. Yeah, I'll just use this. Uh, but yeah, like Vaithi, I started from the software side, but I really didn't know. I thought I knew a lot to solve even the retail world, right? I kind of, to his point, I predicted there are these 5 things I may not know, so this is how I'm going to cover it. They're the easiest things to do, and then you have these 20 things as I think it was the American foreign secretary, who said the known unknowns, right? That Rumsfeld, right? Kind of stupid guy during Iraq, but but there are so many unknowns, so have the known unknowns, but there are so many unknown unknowns that you just don't know. So I think, so when you start off, there's no point. I agree with Vaiti. No point obsessing over how you're going to fix. What are the challenges out there? But you'll fix that. You realize they were nothing. That's it. That's very easy, and you just mentally prepare yourself for uh, expecting a lot of unknowns to come up. Um, I think for us, I did spend a lot of time on studying this because I was completely clueless about retail. Right, I had no idea. I had no idea about print. Right, I just liked customer service and a bit of this. So for so what happens luckily in retail is that the customer comes and keeps slapping you every day. Right, if you say something, you say, "Ye nahi karta hai." How come we don't do this? How stupid? So my concept was, we said, Lalna and I, who set it up, was that it's going to be a no-nonsense shop. You walk in, it's like cookie cutter, get stuff done, quickly out. We only take PDFs, we'll print it fast, send it out, great quality, that's it. And as soon as the first customer came in, he doesn't have a PDF, he has a Corel Draw. And we said, this is not scalable. We don't do Corel Draw, right? First day, second day, you have no money. We have like 700 rupees of sales in the first day. Second day, some 300 rupees of sales. And finally, one of the guys in the store said, "Sir, we'll get Corel Draw." I said, no, that's not scalable. Yeah, how will you have people doing Corel Draw stuff? And then you realize this all scalability is bullshit. You got to figure out how to scale it. You can't like theoretically say that it's not scalable, so I won't do it. And then we got, so now, so that's literally for me, from a mindset point of view, from a software entrepreneur. I used to run, a product company in the Valley before that. This was a big shift to do things which are unscalable and then trying to make them scale, right? So I think for us, there was once we learned that. Luckily, we learned that very early in retail because you don't see money walk. You see shops opened up. You're supposed to do lakhs of sales, but you don't do anything. So you have to do something different. That helped us change our mindset. So today, and that's when we became customer focused. We weren't really customer focused before we started. We were just theoretically customer focused.
I think that was like super candid and I mean, something back, I live in Delhi and something that I've heard a lot of businessmen say there कि customer को कभी मना नहीं करना है जो भी करना जो भी बोल रहे हैं हाँ बोल दो we'll figure it out we'll do some जुगाड़ and we'll figure it out but मना तो बिल्कुल ही नहीं करना है पैसे आती हुई लक्ष्मी को कभी मना नहीं करते so I think that's a very good funda to keep in mind while you're starting up as well. So particularly talking about the D2C space and the retail space, it's super crowded. And both of you have built some amazing brands that have lasted, right? And I mean, how did you ensure that your brand stands out? And what role does innovation play? Or if there's anything else that you'd like to highlight in terms of making a brand stand out in a crowded market?
You know, again, it's a very complex question, and I don't think we can give a short answer, but let me try and tell you. I think the key is if you're doing a startup, I think the given is, unless you're very lucky, very rarely do you have few $1 billion to spend, right? Or burn, whatever the word is. So you're always working on a resource crunch. And hence, the first thing to build a brand is to have clarity of thought. And the clarity is not what we can do, but more importantly, what are all the things that we don't do or we can't do, right? And I think that's the first step. In a sense, it's a layer on what Manish said in the previous question. But sometimes, if you try and do everything just to keep customers happy and you have limited resources, you could actually get distracted. So I think the first thing that you need to do is to be absolutely focusing. This is what we will do. We will do it well. We will do it better than anybody else. But here's a whole lot of things that we will never do, or at least we will not do today, right? And I think that's the first step. Once you have that clarity, then you focus on saying what I can do, I will execute to the best ability. Without ever forgetting that at the end of the day, the purpose of the startup is to make money, right? And the moment you compromise on that, it's very hard to build a sustainable business. And we see that every day on the papers, right? What's happening today is not new. Uh, I certainly expected this a long, long time back, but when you're in good times, nobody listens to good advice, right? The fact of the matter is all of this was expected to happen. And I think the important thing is to focus on what you can do, execute that very well, and never forget that the purpose of the startup is to make money, right? As long as you keep these three things in mind, it's not difficult. It's not difficult. It's tough because you're always going to have a resource crunch, but it is not impossible. To me, these are the three principles on which I would advise startups to go build brands.
Yeah, I'll make 2 points. One is continuation of, Vaithees's point and correction of what you took away. So I just want to say that I do not believe that you can build products based on what customers say. In fact, you can't do everything that a customer said. So customers gave us a lot of other piece. But the difficult part of the entrepreneur, early part of the journey is to understand what to say no to, right? So will you do a business card and I've got it on CorelDRAW? I say, yeah, but I remember ICICI came very early to us, said that, will you do mailers for us, right? And it was a lot of money and there was not much margin, but enough money for us. And, but Lalana had more experience than me in print, but both of us were very clear. No, this we don't do, right? And that would have meant about 50, 60 lakhs for us in that year. And my first year revenue was 54 lakhs. So this was so I think ये वो लक्ष्मी है या यमदूत है वो पहचानना जरूरी है. हाँ. हाँ. Yeah, so that's the continuation of Vaithees's point. I think it's very important, besides saying what you'll do, what you won't do. Very difficult to define what you won't do, right? And that you got to sit down and say, keep revisiting. We do it now once in 2 years, but we revisit. I know we've just put together a 2-year plan and we've said what we won't do. It gives you clarity on what to do. I think the other piece that you said about how to build a brand is so a lot of people have misconceptions about, and there was a time when I was also, yeah, silly about it, that brand is built with marketing and putting hoardings, spending money, and that's got nothing to do with the brand at all, right? It's the promise that you're making and the experience of the customer. So if you can keep that consistent, your brand is built, right? So I once was arguing with a buddy of mine who's an advertising guy, and he said, "Look at Apple, what advertising's done for Apple, right?" And I thought you're missing the point. Apple's not built because of the Super Bowl ad or whatever they played. It's built because they've got a solid product, clean proposition, make it easy, simple, sleek, and do it again and again and again. That's how the brand was built. So I think don't worry about marketing in the beginning from that point of view, except for getting some visibility or traction, but not from that's how brand is built.
Absolutely, and thank you for clarifying the point, earlier point as well. So now, just because you've basically involved in building India's first e-commerce Fab Mart, and would you like to highlight the role of R&D that has played in Fab Mart, or going forward, the role it can play for a lot of D2C brands in today's market as well?
Yeah. So, R&D, and I'm using the word very carefully because I think the impression that people carry about R&D is you have complex labs and scientists working on it, which is true largely, but it's not always the case. I mean, you could do development of a product or a service without necessarily investing deeply into it. My view is that I think R&D plays an important role as long as you're building a product-based business as opposed to a service-based business. Service is more about process improvements, process innovations, uh, but not much of R&D in that traditional sense of the word. Let me give you an example of what we did, let's say, in Again Drinks. Again Drinks is where we built an FMCG brand where it was the only FMCG product in India that patents, right? There we actually did R&D because we worked with research labs, and these were true labs with scientists and dairy experts trying to use milk and fruits and try to create a product. Uh, and it does play a role because unless you use R&D, you can't build a product. And if you look at most D2C startups, and I say this with a lot of respect, so I'm not bringing anybody down, but a lot of D2C startups today are building the D2C part, which is the consumer part, but all of them are not necessarily manufacturing the product, right? Many of them are bought out, third party branded. So there's very little R&D that role that plays, and there's nothing wrong with it. It doesn't mean that everybody has to set up a factory or make it on your own. You can still have a factory that subcontract but still make a product for you. Everybody needn't do that, but there are two parts to it. So R&D will play an important role on D2C startups as long as they're in a product and not in a service, and B, they're very clear they want to make the product. And make means I'm not talking manufacturing. Manufacturing can still be subcontracted, but you're making a product which is unique and is different from existing products. Let's say shoes, right? There are enough D2C brands that sell shoes, and obviously everybody's shoe is different from everybody else's shoe, and everybody's shoe is better than everybody else's shoe, which is theoretically not possible. But the fact is, everybody claims that my shoe is the best shoe in the world, and I'm sure it is. But the fact is, the number of people who make the shoes is not the same as the number of people selling. The shoe brands are a lot more than the shoe manufacturers. Similarly, apparel, right? 30-40% of apparel that gets sold on D2C brands, I'm told, come from Tirupur, right? So there are 3-4 factories who make it. It's the branding. So in those cases, there's really no development that's happening. But where you're truly making the product, it plays a role. So you have to decide what you want to do.
got a mic. In fact, Vaiti, and not many people know, because both of us are different vintage from what I see around. Uh, yeah, yes, and just imagine doing today. It's and not that it's easy today, but I think a lot of R&D must have happened in process also because when Vaiti started his company, I remember I was the fifth employee of Rediff with Ajit, right? And so there's no payment gateway, as you can get that plug and play, right? So it would take about maybe 2 months to get a payment gateway set up. I don't know if it ever. It took you built your own, right? And then, so you got to do. There's nothing that you can. No logistics, nothing, none of that stuff. So I think depending on the D2C brand you're starting, there might be a bunch of elements that you might have to research and develop. Mostly in the service side, like if I see certain, yeah, I've been ordering some specialty Gond Methi laddus from Bombay, from some firm in Bombay. It came up on my Instagram feed, ordered it. They targeted me well, old man looking for stuff for his knees. And, but, their packaging and the ability to deliver it to me in a certain way which is not broken, I think that's a bunch of R&D, besides the fact that they could make the whole piece happen, right? So that's what yeah, I see. But you wanted to ask me the same question on the R&D
No,
piece
no,
or not? Yeah.
all insights are welcome. But yeah, I saw basically, I had another question for you as well. Is that, I mean, you've basically transformed a very traditional industry. So, what role, I mean, innovation has played in it or in your strategies? And how do you make sure that it's, I mean, because the industry is still evolving and you want to stay relevant always. So, how do you incorporate innovation even today?
So ours was very easy. We didn't do any as in need creation, right? Unlike, let's say, Vaiti's current business, even his earlier businesses, where there was no stated, in our case, there's stated need that print everybody wanted when we started off, right? There's no, and there were enough printers, right? And so much so that when I told my dad, I'm from Bombay, that I came back to India, I said, I'm going to Bangalore, and he says, are you crazy? What are you doing? I said, I'm setting up this Printo stuff. He says that was, yeah, and with no offense to, anybody, I'm Marwadi, right? And we don't have a Marwadi gene because my dad's an engineer, his dad was an engineer and all that stuff. So my dad said that Hamare mein, anybody doesn't understand Hindi, then I'll translate it later, right? But
I
you would
think
say that,
everybody does in
yeah.
the
So
room.
you would say, in us Marwadis, if you have a son, right? Very sexist, misogynist, everything. If you have a son, they would say, usko dhande pe laga do. If you had a bekar son, you would say, uske liye dhanda khol do. You don't put him in our business, right? Put in some other business.
Smart.
And if you had a completely nikamma son, say, uske liye printing press khol do. Right? And I didn't find it funny at all. I said, man, I'm going to do this and you're giving me all this shit. Today I realize where he was coming from.
Yeah.
Because there's enough demand. It's like setting up a restaurant. Everybody wants food. So print at that time, at least, was there, right? And so where we innovated was in service delivery, right? Saying make it consistent. Why is it that printers can't do this consistently? The second thing we did was we productized. So the first, when I was an entrepreneur in India, the first business card, they would ask me, स्क्रीन प्रिंट करना है कैसे करना है तो मैं बोला आई डोंट नो कितना कलर चाहिए I don't know. You remember we used to have to ask all these questions, right? And then कौन सा paper non-tearable कैसा चाहिए? There's no. So I think what Printo really did was made it from a tailor shop into a ready-made shop, right?
Right.
That's what we did on the product side. But the demand for clothes was huge, so I didn't have to face his problem of demand
Creating
for
that
a
demand as well.
health drink for is something where you are working on the demand side as well, right? There's a aspect. The other part we really, I think we innovated on was, in seeing to it that a small, I realized that we should not be only on print. So today, only 20% of our business is print on paper. 80% is apparel. Is apparel packaging for D2C brands, there's gifting, brand merchandise, employee engagement, bunch of that stuff. So we created a structure right from, that's one of very few things we got right. We got a bunch of things wrong. was to create a structure where we say we can't put too much equipment in a store. We got a hub and spoke model. So we have a hub in every city, and we have stores. And we keep few equipment for quick turnaround time, and then send everything else to a central hub, turns it around the next day through a milk round, right? That's the, again, as he said, there's a process innovation in that piece rather than a product innovation.
Awesome. So a lot of D2C brands here might have an online presence today and are exploring offline presence as well. So my question, and for the benefit of all, would be that how to balance these two, and if there are any checkpoints or bullet points that one should look out for when they're exploring both online and offline presence as a D2C brand.
You know, sometimes I think that a lot of startups follow a group or a herd mentality. So sometime back, being pure online was the flavor. Before that, pure offline was the flavor. Now, then later offline brands went online. And now D2C brands start as D2C brand, then they go offline. And there's nothing wrong. I think the point I'm trying to make is the decision to go online or offline or both or neither is dependent on where the customer is, right? If she's offline, then you go offline. If she's online, you go online. If she's available in both, then you figure out what is the best way to serve her requirements without losing money, right? It's also a misnomer, and I must tell you this. It's a misnomer that online is cheap and offline is expensive. Offline is expensive, but neither is online cheap. It's just that both are expensive. Offline is a lot more expensive simply because there are a whole lot. See, the beauty about the online D2C business is that the most of the expense goes towards revenue generation. Offline, unfortunately, is not like that. A whole lot of expenses which are mandatory, you have no choice, generates no revenue, which means it's in a sense wasted expense. But if you've chosen to go offline, there is no choice, right? So, for example, if you have 100 Printo outlets, you need to have at the very least 100 people, right? One in each store. And I'm sure he knows this better. Some stores will require two, some require three. Assuming it's two and a half people per store, we're already talking 250 people. Will all of them impact revenue? Maybe, may not be. But you can't say, okay, this is one store where I'll put nobody and run it. That's the advantage of an online business where a whole lot of costs can be controlled and you focus only on what generates revenue. Offline, unfortunately, can go the other way. So I think the decision whether to go offline or online depends on two things. A, where is the customer? B, what is the best channel to serve her? And how much money do you have to experiment with both? And it's quite likely that both may fail, right? In which case you have a problem. But it's not I think you need to be careful. All I'm saying is don't do it because others are doing it. Please don't go offline because my friend, she runs a D2C brand. She went offline, I'll go offline. I think that's the wrong thing to do.
Absolutely, absolutely.
It's interesting, Vaiti. I see, I agree with one of the things you said. I also have a different opinion on the other one, on offline and online. But coming to continuation of where your customer is, I think that's very important. But to understand what the customer wants is super important. For example, let's just take a quick example of, let's take Printo, primarily offline. Our online revenues are about 15% of our revenues, right? We are about just among the room, just to give size and saying, okay, we are a 150 crore company. So that's and just 10% of it comes from online. But we get a lot of leads, we get a lot of, so online is used by Google My Business to locate a Printo store, going there. Having said that, let's compare with Vistaprint India. Now, Vistaprint is a NASDAQ-listed international firm, fantastic company. In India, they've been there for now 12 years, spent a lot of money. They've spent about 160 crores growing that business. And Vistaprint's revenue, Vistaprint is loss-making, and the revenue is half of Printo. So when we thought through this, why is this happening? When they're doing a better marketing job is because the turnaround time is a very important factor for our customer. So it's linked to what he said about find what your customer, I would extend it by saying, and what the customer needs. So my customer TAM, my TAM has just completely increased because of my offline presence.
Absolutely. I think I would make this my last question before we open it up for Q&A, because I'd love for people also to get that opportunity. I mean, what do you see in the future for the D2C landscape in India and globally? Are there any particular trends that you foresee or technology that will play a very crucial role going forward?
Yeah, well, a whole lot of almost everything in a D2C is based on technology. Right? There is some layer of technology irrespective of what you do, whether you're shipping the product, selling the product, putting up content, delivering the service, tracking consumer behavior. I think all of them need technology. So there's no escaping technology, certainly in a D2C brand. But in my view, the one thing that will change a lot, impact going forward, is predicting consumer behavior, right? I mean, there's of course artificial intelligence, there's predictive analytics. They're all big buzzwords, and some of them require deep tech. But at a very simple level, we now have enough data uh, to understand what consumers are likely to do in the online world. Um, how are they going to search for a product or service? How are they going to land up? What are the ways of targeting them? What are the ways of retargeting them? How do you bring them in? Those are available. And I think most of the D2C brands also understand the standard things, saying, okay, let me use Google Analytics, let me track their behavior, let me do attribution. But at a base level, everybody does exactly the same thing. I think the opportunity for a D2C brand is to see, can I delve deeper into that journey and figure out how smart I am compare understanding consumers' behavior as opposed to my competitor. And to me, that technology will differentiate. In my view, that's the keys to the kingdom. If you can crack that, you can then skill say the beauty of the D2C business. If you figure out a way of making money, then you can make obscene amounts of money, right? Because scaling is so easy. But it's also a place where you can lose money and quickly go down the tube, right? So, and it happens because a lot of people who run D2C brands believe that the way to succeed is to drive a whole lot of traffic from multiple channels onto the website or the app without realizing that the real way of getting value is to find out once she lands on the website or the app, how well do I understand what she's doing there? And to me, that's the technology that will make a big difference. That's the difference between success or failure.
Absolutely.
Quickly, just a point on to add on D2C brands. I think one of the challenges I see, I have a bunch of friends who do that, bunch of customers say, is scale, and not because of the entrepreneur's inability to scale, but our inability to understand the market. The market does not exist as large as what you think it is, right? I gave the Vedic spoons with this company. I gave the Gond Laddu example. While my dad will be considered by normal metrics yeah, in the same income bracket, there's no way he's paying 1,200 rupees a kg.
Yeah, yeah.
For that stuff, right? So it's like, so most of my friends, and we've also misread our market size. I think D2C brands, at least what I'm seeing, we are seeing a much smaller market size than what we think that really exists. But that market is not large, not small at all.
Right.
So if you know that market size is only so much, you start building a business accordingly.
Around. Absolutely. So I think we're open for questions from the audience, if you have any. Or else I'd love to do like a quick two question rapid fire of sorts that I'm from both of you actually. So I mean, if you can name a leader that inspires you even today, who would that be?
Every time I got to think because he was answering first. This time he said,
So he's like, let me put it on you.
yeah, I don't know, man. Yeah. Yes, that's what he meant by rapid fire. You hang around here. I rather answer questions from entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
You know,
No,
then
I
picking
mean,
between.
just two till the time
Yeah.
they're thinking. Huh?
Yeah,
Please go ahead.
Yeah.
So I wanted to check that, especially the D2C space or the startup space is very crowded, often when you're talking to brands or companies, it is more of, oh, you are like so and so. You're very often compared. What does it take to be a category creator? Like today, I think of a Maggie, I think of a Xerox, I never think of that. Or even Printo, I remember, I mean, Printo's been around since I've been in college. So the first thing is, if you want standardized things, I shall do this. So, in both your experiences and for all the brands here, what are a couple of things to keep in mind to not be a startup but actually be that category creator that you're known as?
Me with the mic at this time. I think Vaithi alluded to one thing, that there's a herd mentality. And this is very common in the venture community, which is about referencing and saying, so they basically say, hey, you do the hard work, we'll do the easy work. Tell us who this is like. So I'm the Uber of print. I'm the so-and-so of that, right? It makes my job so much easier, and the $1 million that I'm earning per year is like much more justified. So I think definitely that is a poor way to start thinking, right? And I've done that multiple times, right? And yeah, I started an app called Pi within this, and we say it's a Uber of print, because they say, hey, it's easier for everyone to understand. Hey, is the investor so dumb that I have to dumb it down to this? And then I start believing it. I am the Uber of print, right? So I think the clarity out there is avoid referencing. Let them figure out their own associations, and eventually you'll make it happen. But this is a massive distraction, and I think I'm glad you asked this question, because I've suffered from it, and every time I've got into it, I've just wasted sometimes lakhs of rupees, and sometimes months of going down that. I have decks which have got that stupid slide which calls us something else of something. A creator platform, for example. It was the latest deck 3 years ago. We were trying to pitch to somebody, and he said, this guy invests in creator platforms. So we called ourselves a creator platform. And then we convinced ourselves, but it is a creator platform. You walk into a store, you can create something, do that. But it's playing to somebody else's tune. You can't dance that.
So just to add, you're right. I mean, I think this Uber of print, I remember several years back, everybody said they're the Uber of this, the Uber of this. And our son used to work for Uber. So I asked him, look, everybody is saying they're Uber of this. What do you say? Oh, we are the Uber of Uber, right? So the fact is, I think you can never be a category creator if you're the Uber of something, right? You have to be unique, right? If Coimbatore is the Manchester of the South, it's not a category creator, right? Coimbatore must be able to stand up on its own as to why they do stuff that nobody else does. The key point to be a category creator is not just size, but to be able to do stuff that others don't do. I think that's the starting point. The second is to make sure, therefore, that every single experience that customers have at various touch points stands up to the promise that you set. If you meet those two conditions, then it's a matter of scaling. And I'm not saying scaling is easy, it's got its own set of challenges. But unless you solve these two, there's no way you can be a category. I mean, if you're the Uber of something, you're not creating any category. I can guarantee you, right? So that's the thing. You have to be different.
Thank you so much. So now Bangalore is no more the Silicon Valley of India. Bangalore
I just hope that no investor has done that in the pitching room today.
that's
But
why they separate.
Question back there.
Yeah. I have a question. My question is for product-based company. What frame we have to keep while making a product? We have to consider the customer reviews more, or is it like the founder what he feels we are having that this particular product is aiming to what we exactly thought, or is it based on the reviews, or is it based on the usage of the customer?
So I think it's a mixture of all that. The first thing, and I'm going to repeat what Manish said earlier, it's very hard to build a product based on what the customer wants, right? And without dumbing down customers, they're obviously super smart. In any case, they pay your salary. So whether you like it or not, they are super smart. But you can't depend on consumers to tell you what product to create, because she's not putting $1 million in the business, right? So if you go ask her saying, should I create a light that is upside down? She'll say, yeah, create it. How does it matter? So I think you can't ask customers always. Sometimes you have to ask. I think the starting point is, what is the gap that I have identified which requires a solution? What is the problem that if I solved, people will like it? Or what is the problem that you believe if you solve, customers have not yet figured out, will make their lives easier? And I'm also going to repeat what Steve Jobs said, that the customer has no idea what she wants. Um, to me, one of the biggest innovation that Apple did is the swiping, right? Before that, we were happy pressing keys, right? How many million consumer customers in the world told phone manufacturers that if only you allowed us to swipe, life will be easy, right? Nobody told them. But they went and did it because they felt instinctively that life will become easier, right? Simpler, better. I have three words that define product. In fact, I use the three words for anything, but for product companies, I think they work very well. Can you create something that is better, faster, cheaper? There are only three things. And if you can create a product that makes consumers' lives better than where they are, faster than where they are, or cheaper than what they're spending today, and you meet two of those, not three, at least two of those conditions, then I think you got something interesting. If you meet one of those conditions, then I think you need to do more work. If you meet all three, then you are the Uber of something.
You
Yes,
might be
please.
running out of time. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Just-
Sure. A pet company? Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I would start with listening to my dad. Not do this shit, for sure. Building business in India is bloody tough, and physical business is like say this is my and non-software. I find it super tough. So all of you guys, D2C brands, we guys are screwed. We got to like work for the next 100 years, and then perhaps pray that something will work out fine. So I'm just setting you up for hard work, right? So yeah, and you know he's run a software business. I've run a software business earlier, and I think it was much easier for me, at least as a services software business, like relaxed. I would have done a bunch of things differently, right? Usually got my estimates double checked, triple checked, done that much more, spend much more time, been a little humbler when I got feedback, right? So I went and took a lot of feedback. Please listen to a lot of feedback. I don't think I had the humility because, you know, there's also some sort of arrogance all of us need to have. I know what I'm doing, right? So say, and you require that arrogance to get you somewhere. But I don't think humility needs to erode your product thinking. So I would go and listen to a bunch of guys, much more, figure that out, test out a bunch of other things, right? So there's a long list of things I would do, right? I would work very hard on my founding team, right? Because Lalna, my co-founder, is also my wife. And she said, listen, we can't do this together. We'll do this for 2 years. And you know how an entrepreneur is, Chalo and I will do it, we'll figure it out. And finally, we did it for 4 or 5 years, but I did not focus on the founding team because she kept telling me, listen, let's get a founding team together. We didn't. So a bunch of things that I would do that. But, you know, if you had something specific, I might be able to help you a little more. Right? Yeah. But yeah, this won't make sense to you now. It won't make sense to me also if I'm starting a new business, right? So I think we'll do the same mistake. All these things I'm saying, you know, I will do it again. Maybe I'll spot the existing mistakes faster, but I will definitely have new mistakes I'll make. So don't bother about it too much. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I know Vaithi sir had a hard stop. So, but if Manish is around, we can take more questions offline and we'll let the other panelists join us. Okay, then I think he had a question.
It all varies, right? And I'll allow Vaiti to, you know, go his own way. I'll give my way because for me, it was opening a shop is very easy, right? So it's just I opened a shop in a place which was affordable for me, but at the same time, not totally far away, right? So Koramangala, fifth block was our first shop. And that was our customer acquisition cost, right? As in the regular. So that's what we did. But I think we'd already got our first 100, 200,000 customers in our case in our head when we started to decide where we wanted that shop, right? So that is a long process. So and I'm not from Bangalore, right? So we came in, started going around saying Indiranagar, Koramangala, these kind of people. We saw a bunch of things, and I remember Lalna saying, I think this is not our place when we went to a certain area. This looks more like it. And we started agreeing on the audience and who our consumer is. And that got us the first 100 customers. But yeah, he had a tougher time with that one.
Yes. So, here's the challenge. I think the first 100 customers for an offline business is easier. Uh, the next million is tough. In the online business, the first 100 is tough. The next million is easy. And I'll tell you why. If you're opening a store, BTM layout, crazy traffic, you're putting up a sweet shop. While you're doing the interiors, the smart guy always puts up the shop, saying, whatever brand you have, and say, India Sweets, put some glow lights, interiors are going on. But every day with this kind of traffic, a million people are seeing the board. So when the day you launch, all you do is you put some flowers here and there, and 100 people will walk in. Now imagine you're putting up a sweet shop online. The equivalent of the lights and the interiors are your lovely pages, user interface, HTML's all done, great payment gateway, and then you go live. Nothing will happen because nobody knows you're there. And hence, the first 100 customers is a very important question depending on what channel you're using. If it's offline, you don't need to do anything. You just put up the store, they'll come. The next million is tough, or the next 1,000 is tough because how many people will get stuck in traffic every day in BTM layout? Then you have to start spending money. The online, the first 100 is very difficult. When I'm saying 100, maybe 1,000. But if you do a good job with those 1,000, they'll lead to the next 10,000 they'll bring in. So first 100, depending on the channel, is either easy or tough. You have to figure out which channel you're using. Did I answer that? Okay, if you're using the online channel, then obviously the answer is very simple. If you're into the online business or D2C, the first 1,000 customers, you have to focus on trials. Reach out to people that you think will be there. No need to advertise. If you're running, let's say, I see a lot of women here in this room as opposed to men. So if you're running a women's apparel brand, you go to all of them saying, I'm started this site, we're doing some great women's apparel, here is a site, and here is a code which gets you 80% off. That's all you need to do. There's no need to put up posters. Or first apparel, 100% off. You must get 10,000 customers like that. Then hope that they like it enough to go tell their friends to say, go and buy. That's how you start. Focus on trials. There's no other way to do this. Don't advertise. It's pointless.
I think that was quite an actionable insight which we all can use here. So thank you so much, sir, and thank you so much, Manish, for doing this for us.